How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be doing a tutorial on JSON and explaining what JSON is for those of you that don't know it but have already heard about JSON. I want to start off by apologizing if you hear any barking in the background. My dogs are play fighting, so I do apologize. So let's go ahead and get started. I've pulled up the json.org website. This is just a brief overview of explaining what JSON is, and JSON stands for the JavaScript Object Notation. You can read all this information. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to run over that later when I give you some examples. But basically, a JSON object is no different from a standard JavaScript object. Okay, the difference being is that the variable name that you would normally declare in an object is going to be surrounded by double quotes. Okay, this is going to be the main difference. So let's go ahead and run over to our editor and start off by giving you an example. You'll see here at the top I have included the jQuery library. We're going to be using that later for when we want to pull in the JSON information from an external file using Ajax. But I just want to give you a quick overview between the standard JavaScript object and a JSON object. So I'm going to declare a new variable here, and I'm going to call it new obj. Okay, new object, okay, and we have squiggly brackets, and inside this new object we're going to declare a new variable, and the way you declare a variable in a typical object, you add the name but you ignore the variable or the var declaration. So we won't add this, okay, you don't add that. It's just a standard name, okay? And the equal sign is actually going to be the colon, and then you declare whether or not it's a string or an array or an integer. So I'm going to just give this one a string. This is a string, something straightforward. Second one, I'll call this the other var. I'm not good with names. And I'll declare this an integer and give it a value of 300. Okay, so this is what you would usually class as a standard JavaScript object. Okay, and the difference between this and a JSON object, like I said before, is a JSON object is going to use quotes. But you're pretty much going to get the information the exact same way. If I was to obtain the value of some var, this is a string, okay, I'm going to go ahead and console log this out to our browser, and I will say go to the new obj variable and get me some var. So some var, okay, if I save that and I run over to our browser, alright, and refresh the page, this is a string, okay? Straightforward. You're simply obtaining the, you're basically hitting the object, the new variable, new obj, and inside this object we are referring to some var, and it's returning the variable value. Okay, so this is a key and value, and altogether it's called a key value pair. So if we want to get the other variable name, the other var, and we want to get the value 300, we simply just go ahead and write this out, save it, refresh the browser, and now we have 300. So why use this? Well, JSON is becoming more and more widely used throughout the internet. It's much easier to read and much easier to write. You will notice that there's more people and more websites using JSON now than the XML format. I prefer it myself. There's no difference really between the methods that you obtain the values from JSON and XML. It's just that in XML you're going to be iterating over tags like HTML tags, and here we're just declaring the name of the variable. So let's continue with our external file that I had mentioned to you before. I'm going to go ahead and clear this out and run over to our external JSON file. I just call this external.json. You can call it whatever you want, but here we will have basically an object declared by the squiggly brackets. Okay. One thing to note is if I copy this and go over to JSON lint, JSON lint is your friend. JSON lint is going to basically validate the JSON and refer back whether it's valid or not. If I was to try and finish, if I was to add a comma and validate that, it's going to say there's an error. Okay, so make sure you validate your code. That way you're not going to run into problems later on. Going back, we have an object declared by these squiggly brackets, and inside the object we have our key and value pairs, key and value, key and value. Here you've noticed that we have another object. There's no difference between this and this object. We just simply drill down into it deeper and deeper and deeper. So how do we do this? Well, there are many different functions that jQuery provides for AJAX requests. My personal favorite for JSON is just the getJSON. This is going to have the AJAX request built into the function, and there's two parameters that we have to declare. The first is going to be the name of the file. So in my case, I have the external.json file and the json.html in the same directory. So I don't have to provide any directory name, so I'm just going to go ahead and write external.json since it's in the same directory. And the second is going to be the callback function. And inside this callback function, we have to provide a variable name, and I'm just going to call this variable data. Okay, what happens is when this function successfully finds this file and it passes the information, it's going to pass it back to us, and it's going to store it in this variable called data. This is very similar to the new obj variable that we declared earlier, and we will go ahead and drill into this object the same way. So let me go ahead and do a console log of data, and we'll add a dot, and let's say we want the first name, which is going to be John. We simply write first name, save that, and refresh the page, and we have John. So what you'll see here is we've just redone a AJAX request. I don't think you'll see it from a local environment, but we did an AJAX request to this file. We stored the entire object inside the data variable that we've declared, and we're simply just doing a console log for the first name. You'll notice here that we have a object inside of the address, and we can obtain anything inside of here by simply adding another period and the name. So if we want the city name, we'll go ahead and we'll say data.address.city. Oops. And go back to our browser, refresh, and we have New York. Okay, so this is just a real brief overview of what JSON is and why it's really useful. I do suggest that you go out and do some more research and get familiar with JSON and the different methods that you can use to obtain the information. But I hope this is going to help everyone out. And if you have any comments, feel free to leave them below. Thanks.